flashing light. You're good.
I'd like to call the Maumelle City Council meeting to order. I do want to inform you that Alderman Saunders will not be here tonight. He is sick, and so he cannot be with us tonight. And the first order of business is the invocation and pledge of allegiance. I'd ask you to all please rise as I'll lead us in that. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for this day, Lord, and we're thankful for this community that we represent, Lord. We'd ask you to be with us tonight as we make decisions, Lord, and give us the wisdom that we need to make those decisions, Lord. We'd ask you to be with our community and bless it and help us to prosper, Lord. We'd ask you to, this time, be with our servicemen and women that are serving overseas, Lord. Be with them, keep them safe, and be with their families here as they're away from them. Help us to go out, Lord, and be an inspiration to those around us in our daily walk. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Our next item that we have is we have some special guests here tonight, and we would like to recognize those. So at this time, I'd like Rebecca Aguilera and Hannah Colford to come forward. And this is a mayor's proclamation, and what I'd like to do is read it. Now, they have individual proclamations, but instead of reading the same proclamation twice, I've combined their names on what I'm going to read to y'all. So, because I'm trying to get us out of here before 10 o'clock tonight, but that's the only thing. All right, but we do want to honor them tonight. So, mayor's proclamation to recognize honoree in the Prudential Spirit of Community Award. However effective government may be in serving the needs of its citizens, the soul of our city and its vitality as a place to live and work depends on the relationships of families, friends, and neighbors. Strengthening those bonds is not as much in the hands of institutions or governments as it is in the hearts of the people. Individuals who volunteer to help people of all ages, races, and religions cope with illness, overcome hardship and barriers, adjust to social changes, and fulfill their potential. These volunteers are the unrecognized, unsung heroes of our society. Rebecca Aguilera and Hannah Colford, recently named as one of our state's top honorees in the Prudential Spirit of Community Awards program, exemplifies the value of volunteer service, and it is a role model to other youth as well as adults in our community. A surprising number of volunteers in the community across the nations are like Rebecca and Hannah. Students contributing time without expectation of reward other than the gratification that comes from helping others. Some of these young people work in established groups. Others seek new and unique ways to help others on their own. Recognizing these young volunteers and encouraging others to follow their example is the aim of this nationwide program conducted by Prudential Financial and the National Association of Secondary School Principals. Its aim is to reach every community in all 50 states and the District of Columbia to identify and honor those unsung heroes locally, state by state, and then nationally in the hopes that their recognition will serve to stimulate others to volunteer service. As Mayor of Maumelle and on behalf of our city, I commend Rebecca Aguilera and Hannah Colford, our Prudential Spirit of Community Award honorees, for their outstanding volunteer contribution to others in our community. And therefore, in honor of this achievement, I'm proclaiming April the 20th, 2015, as the Rebecca Aguilera and Hannah Colford Prudential Spirit of Community Recognition Day in Maumelle. Signed, Mayor Michael Watson. Congratulations, and thank y'all very much for y'all's service to the community. You're welcome. We have great volunteers in this community, but that's some of our young ones there, and so we wanted to recognize them. The next order of business is the approval of the minutes from the April 6th regular meeting. All the council members have a copy of those minutes in their packets. Is there any corrections to those minutes?
Motion for approval.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second? Have a motion and a second for approval of the April 6th regular meeting. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Next item is public comment, and we have several public comment cards tonight, somewhere around at least 7 so far. All of them are on one item other than one, so we'll hear that now. But I do want to make note that we are going to impose the 3-minute time limit tonight because of the number of people that want to speak, and so we want to make sure that everybody limits their comments to 3 minutes. And if you just want to agree with what the person said in front of you, that would be fine. If that's what you want to do. We want to hear from everybody, but we don't want to hear the same thing 7 or 8 times. So we would appreciate it just to help us get through the meeting. If you would, if you agree with them and say you support an ordinance or oppose an ordinance one way or the other, well, that's what we'd like to hear. So at this time, we'll move into public comment, and the comment card that I have that's not on an agenda item is from Miss Laura Green. If you would, state your name and address for the record, please.
You don't know me. Laura Green, 5 Barber Cove. I just kind of wanted an update. I've got a couple of different plans. One was from August, and one was engineer plans, and one was from October, but they look a little different.
Okay.
One shows that they do work in front of my house, and the other one, it's really hard to read, but I don't see anything there being done. So I guess I wanted clarification on how much they're doing, because on this one from August, it says that is phase 1, so I didn't know if maybe before it was all approved, the phases maybe changed on what was going to be done in each phase.
Well, I'm not able to answer that question now. I'll have to look at the plans. I mean, if you want to come by and talk to me, we can sit down in my office and look at them. What I will tell you is we have to work from downstream upstream, and so we've got to get everything in place in order to get to your area, because you're almost at the upper stretches of the area. Now, we're going to go behind the house that's directly adjacent to you. I do know that as part of that back there, and that's where they're at currently, in that area right there, right in the pathway area right there. But I can clarify that with you. Probably not tomorrow, but Wednesday we could probably schedule a time or something like that. If you just call my office tomorrow.
And
Or I could even come out there if we need
2
to.
or 3 phases?
There's 2 phases.
Only 2, because
Yes.
this one says 2/3 on some of them.
Okay, there's only 2 phases.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when would the second phase start? Would it determine like how well this is working, or?
Well, it would require more funding. The council hasn't approved that funding yet, so there's not a time frame. There's not a lot of work in phase 2, if I remember correctly. I'd have to look at it again
It
to be.
depends on if they leave this part out. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
But I'd be happy to visit with you in my office, or I could meet you at the site and we might talk about it a little easier there or something.
Okay. So
All right.
just call your office?
Just call my office tomorrow and we can schedule an appointment.
Okay.
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Next item is the financial statement review, and that's done at the second meeting of the month, and we are here at that meeting, and you have a copy of the financial statement in your packet, and Ms. Thompson is here to answer any questions if you have them.
I'll go ahead and offer a motion for approval of the financials.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the financials for March. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is the procedural motion. I need a motion from the floor that we read all resolutions and ordinances by title only.
So moved.
Second.
Been motioned second that the council read all resolutions and ordinances by title only tonight. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Moving on to unfinished business, we have the reading, we have resolution number 2014-05 that has been deferred from the March the 2nd meeting, as it was voted on at that meeting. We don't need to do a reading of it, as we've already done one. And Mr. Barry Heller is here tonight to answer any questions on it. Alderman Lewis?
Appreciate you, Mr. Mayor, and the efforts that you made to contact the city of North Little Rock and try to work out a potential hybrid system to whereby Maumelle Water Management would collect and then offload the wastewater to North Little Rock. Those conversations, though, were it was known in the outset that they would not be easily negotiated, and indeed kind of ran into a bit of a wall there. It was all about trying to make sure that ratepayers that would be within that area along Interstate 40 and the new exit would have at least the security of lower wastewater rates compared to North Little Rock wastewater, which is about close to 2.5 to 3 times as expensive. Again, I think we at least engaged in a conversation, which was good, and we'll see what the future holds. North Little Rock is saying that they will put that interceptor line in, but as we know from our own experiences dealing with issues in the area of the White Oak Bayou is difficult. So we'll see what comes of this, but the point was to get a conversation going. We've had that, but I see no point to continue down this road at this time. Make a motion that we indefinitely postpone Resolution 2014-05.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to indefinitely postpone Resolution 2014-05. Is there a discussion on that motion? I do want to say that if we had done this, we would have actually not given any property owner out there the choice of which one to go to. And it is true, the interceptor line is not under construction yet, but if it is there, then it might be cheaper for that property owner to go into a gravity line. So I didn't want to do that. And I do have concerns also that we would have Maumelle residents that are subjected to a different wastewater commission. But we have that situation right now where we have North Little Rock residents are subject to a Maumelle water commission and wastewater commission. So we have that same situation. I know Mr. Heller's here. Mr. Heller, would you like to speak on this matter? Or?
Well, unless there's some questions, I really don't have anything new to. I'm Barry Heller, General Manager, Maumelle Water Management at 90 Lake Point Place, Maumelle. Let me add real quick that if I run out of here, don't be offended. My wife has me on a special diet, and it's doing wonderful things to my system. I don't have any comments really to make on the resolution. I happen to agree with the tabling of it at this time. The only other comments I have that has anything to do with this is I want to allay a couple of rumors that have been spreading. First, I want to say that it's not Maumelle Water Management's fault that Mr. Wright and Dr. Haas's development does not have sewer. I've been hearing people say that it's because we can't service that area or we're incompetent or whatever. The reason why we don't have sewer at their 2 developments is because we don't put in infrastructure. The developer puts in infrastructure. The only time Maumelle Water Management puts in infrastructure is to correct engineering mistakes made by others. And that's really all I have to add to it, unless you guys have some question for it. I do believe that the best thing to do tonight would be to table this indefinitely, see what happens.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Heller. If there's no other questions, we have a motion to postpone this indefinitely. All those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Next item is Gene Pfeiffer land proposal, and this came before the council in September of last year when Mr. Pfeiffer sent us a letter. I've included that letter again in your packet, and also the Mr. City Clerk gave you some of the drawings that were submitted at that time that are at your table tonight. It was a very generous offer of Mr. Pfeiffer to donate to agree to donate the land under some conditions. The problem is we'd already gone through our bond task force review, and the bond issue was actually on the ballot at that time when this proposal came forward, and we had about $2.7 million to do the bond issue and to do the improvements as kind of laid out with the size of the building that they proposed is about $4.8 million. So the problem is we just don't have the funds to take advantage of this opportunity right now, the way I see it. And to keep Mr. Pfeiffer from wondering if we were ever going to take his procedure, what I would like is for the council to make a motion that we reject his proposal at this time, if the council would so choose to do that.
Do we have to state it in a positive way?
That's usually, you're right. Usually the former city attorney used to always say, do it in an affirmative. That way you could vote no, and everybody understood. If you say we vote to deny this, people get confused on whether to say yes or no sometimes, and so.
Then, Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept Gene Pfeiffer's land proposal.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the proposal from Mr. Pfeiffer. And I know Mr. Hathaway is in the audience out there. I don't know if you wanted to speak to this item, Mr. Hathaway. I knew you would be here tonight, and I know Mr. Pfeiffer's not, but I know you represent him in some cases, but sorry to put you on the spot.
Mayor Watson, thank you for the opportunity to speak to the council. I didn't come here to speak on this item tonight. I would just like to reiterate something that I think most of you know. I know you know it, Mayor Watson, which is that Mr. Pfeiffer would be delighted to entertain a continuation of your consideration of his offer, as long as there was some reasonable expectation that there could be a decision coming sometime soon. If there was any further study about how much a building might cost or any different way to approach the land configuration or anything like that, we'd be glad to continue the discussions. It's something that he understands that the timing wasn't perfect on when it came forward, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I just want to make sure that everybody does know that he's very willing to make the donation under the terms and conditions that he outlined in his letter.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Hathaway. Is there any other discussion on this item? Okay, the motion is to accept Mr. Pfeiffer's offer. All those in favor, please signify by saying yes. Any opposed, say no.
No.
And I don't think it's any indication of the council that we're against Mr. Pfeiffer in any way. It's just the easiest way to handle this issue, if you would convey that, Mr. Hathaway. Next item is the third reading of ordinance number 872, amending the city zoning regulations. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 872, an ordinance amending the zoning regulations to allow a minor encroachment of structural appurtenances in commercial zone in the City of Maumelle and for other purposes.
Okay, this is on third reading, and it's talking about the overhangs that could encroach into a building setback line.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we accept ordinance 872.
I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 872. Is there discussion on that motion? If not, Mr. Clerk, roll call vote.
Alderman Anderson?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Mosley?
Yes.
Alderman Lewis?
Yes.
Alderman Scott?
Yes.
Alderman Vapurzian?
Yes.
Alderman Holt?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next item is the third reading of ordinance number 873, designating the district court clerk for collection of fines. Mr. Clerk, if you read that by title only.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 873, an ordinance designating the district court clerk as the official responsible for collection of fines assessed in the district court for the City of Maumelle, Arkansas.
A motion we approve ordinance 873.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 873. Is there discussion on that motion? If not, Mr. Clerk, roll call vote.
Alderman Lewis.
Yes.
Alderman Scott.
Yes.
Alderman Vapurzian.
Yes.
Alderman Holt.
Yes.
Alderman Anderson.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Mosley.
Yes.
Okay, the next item is the third reading of ordinance number 874, amending and restating trust indentures. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only, please.
Being enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 874, an ordinance amending and restating those certain master trust indenture and supplemental indentures by and between the City of Maumelle, Arkansas, and Bank of the Ozarks as trustee, declaring an emergency and for other purposes.
Make a motion that we accept ordinance 874.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We also have a public comment card on ordinance number 874, and we'll hear from that person at this time, Miss Mary Payton.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Mary Payton, 153 Hibiscus Drive, Maumelle, Arkansas. I know this has come before you. I think this is the third time. And I've read this 3 times, and I have absolutely no idea what it says. I believe that it has to do with the repayment of the bonds that were refinanced by through the new special election that was held in 2012. But I'm still not sure what are you doing here.
Well,
if you don't mind.
Well, I'm going to explain it in layman's terms. Mr. Spivey's not here, so I'll do it in my terms, not his
I
terms.
thought he would be here. Where is he?
Well, he was here at the first meeting.
Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he said nothing.
No, he gave a detail.
No, he gave
Maybe
a
I
detailed
wasn't here
explanation.
then. All right. I'm sorry, I missed it.
Basically,
Layman's terms is fine then.
okay, the 2012 election that had 3 bond projects in it, Bank of the Ozarks was the trustee for that
Right.
bond issue. And we have, in 2004, those bonds were refinanced and a new set of bonds was issued. But since Bank of the Ozarks was already the trustee for the 3 existing projects, the construction funds are going to stay with Bank of the Ozarks. And then Regions Bank takes over as the bond trustee on the new bonds to pay back all the new bonds. But Bank of the Ozarks is going to administer the payment of funds to construct the 3 original projects.
I wonder why I didn't understand that.
I don't know, and I will say it's hard to figure that out reading this, but yeah.
It's
legalese.
It is very difficult, so I'm not even going to try to go there. But at some point, the funds will transfer from Bank of the Ozarks to Regions.
No, they will not. They will transfer from Bank of the Ozarks to the contractors that are doing the actual work and the engineers that are doing the works on the projects.
You mentioned Regions, though.
Regions holds all the bonds.
Oh.
They paid Bank of the Ozarks.
Bonds.
They bought the bonds basically from Bank of the Ozarks. So Bank of the Ozarks still has the funds, but the bonds were all bought from the bondholders. And now the total bond proceeds to pay back all the bonds is with Regions and the new construction funds. They're in 2 different bond trustees.
All right. Now then, one other question that I have. Is there a specified time a limit for using the construction funds?
There's
and does this have anything to do with that?
Does not.
Okay.
But there is a 3-year period to obligate the funds.
To obligate.
To obligate, not to spend, to obligate.
And have we obligated our funds?
We've obligated some of them.
All right. And do you mind telling me which we have and which we haven't?
We've obligated the engineering fees. We haven't obligated any of the construction funds for any of the 3 projects currently.
All right. And so we have how much longer to do that?
We have about another 9 months.
To obligate?
Yes.
But we don't have to actually have begun construction at that point?
No.
And what happens if we do not start construction on it within?
You can, for certain reasons, you can get an extension on that up to a year.
Up to a year. So within 4 years?
Yes, ma'am.
We would have to have at least
signed contracts.
Signed contracts, but not necessarily started any work.
That's true.
I think I want my money back.
Okay.
Can you do that for me?
No, ma'am, I cannot.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no other discussion on ordinance number 874. Mr. Clerk, roll call vote.
Alderman Holt.
Yes.
Alderman Vapurzian.
Yes.
Alderman Scott.
Yes.
Alderman Lewis.
Yes.
Alderman Mosley.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Anderson.
Yes.
Next item is the second reading of ordinance number 875, accepting dedication of streets and drainage. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 875, an ordinance accepting and confirming the dedication of certain streets drainage in Phase 1 and 2 of the colony at Maumelle, in Maumelle, Arkansas, upon the fulfillment of certain contingencies and for other purposes.
There's no action required on this item. Are there any questions or any discussion on this item? If not, we'll move on to the next item. Next item is the second reading of ordinance number 876 concerning the release of unaltered animals. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 876, an ordinance repealing Section 10-114 of the Maumelle City Code of the City of Maumelle, Arkansas, concerning the release of unaltered animals.
Okay, there's no action required on this. Is there any discussion or question? Yes, sir.
This brings us in line with state law, right?
I'm going to defer to Mr. City Attorney.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I had that right in my mind.
Correct. Our ordinance currently says that animal control can contract with folks who adopt new animals in order to ensure that the adopted animals are spayed or neutered. State law requires that happen before the adoption.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions on ordinance number 876? If not, we'll move on to new business. First item under news business is a Civil Service Commission appointment. And Mr. Douglas Coney, who I know as Doug, has submitted his application or a letter. And so he is the only applicant we have, but since Doug is here and he gave you a letter, but I'd still like him to tell you a little bit about himself. If you don't know him, you can learn a little bit about him, because he's only been in Maumelle, I think, since it was invented, maybe, or something like that.
I'm Doug Coney, Sr., and I live at 35 Oak Forest Drive. Been out here in Maumelle for 39 years, so I was one of the original 500, I think. I worked on the incorporation committee. At the time, we had a public service committee, and I served on the volunteer fire department for 24 and a half years. I have a whole family of firefighters. My oldest son is a fire chief, operations chief in Little Rock. My youngest son is a captain, and my son-in-law is a captain. So I have a whole family of firefighters. And I'm looking very forward to serving on the Civil Service Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Coney. Alderman Lewis? Wait, no, there may be some questions, Doug. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, it is with sincere admiration that I make a motion that we approve Mr. Doug Coney Sr. To the Maumelle Civil Service Commission.
I second. Oh, sorry.
All right, I got a motion and a second. I've got another light on here. Alderman Holt?
I didn't strike soon enough. I, too, am, as a 16-year down the street neighbor, I am deeply honored to have the opportunity to endorse Mr. Coney, and I sincerely hope he will be forthwith installed immediately.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Holt.
Alderman Mosley?
Yeah, if we could have 3 or 4 seconds motions, I'd be in there too. So, welcome aboard as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
We've known each other a long time.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we have a motion on the floor to appoint Mr. Doug Coney Sr. to the Maumelle Civil Service Commission. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Welcome aboard, Mr.
Thank you,
Connor.
Mayor.
Congratulations.
Next item is the first reading of ordinance number 877, enabling residents to keep chickens. Mr. Clerk, if you read that by title only.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 877, an ordinance amending the city code to enable residents to keep a small number of chickens within the City of Maumelle, to provide standards for the keeping of chickens and for other purposes.
Okay, I have several public comment cards on this item, and I do want to point out that we do not have to, the council typically does not act on an ordinance. It'll be read 3 times at 3 separate readings, and that's why you saw earlier tonight that we were on third reading of some ordinances. And so just to remind you that this will, there's typically it won't be voted on tonight. It would be voted on at the second meeting in May. So at this time, if the council has no objections, we'll hear from the public on these items, and these are the order in which that we received them. So, Ms. Jennifer Lee, if you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Didn't know I was going first. Jennifer Lee, 37 Vantage Drive, obviously here in Maumelle. I found out about this meeting tonight, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. Some of you don't know, or I don't know how many of you know, I've kept chickens here in Maumelle for the last 8.5 years, legally. Kind of all started with me. And I started out with 13 chickens. My last 2 died this past year, so I had a continuous flock, basically for 8.5 years with no additions per the rules that I got grandfathered in that I couldn't add. So I was always very careful to make sure that I always followed the rules that were set out for me. I bet none of you have hardly heard a word about my chickens. That's how quiet it's been. The chickens were quiet, I was quiet, and if you follow the rules, it's not a big deal. There were a couple of complaints completely unfounded. The city checked me out. I was always in code with how the coop was kept, how they were treated, and there was never a mess. I have maybe a larger yard than some, but I kept 13 chickens, and I think this ordinance is only asking for 6. And if they're fenced in and you take care of them, they're easier than cats and dogs, and they're not going in your house either. So I think there's just some room to think about this and to learn more about this. So we raised our chickens by hand, and they were our pets. They all had names. They followed us around. They are not a danger to anybody. If they get loose, they're a danger to themselves, not anybody else. So also the coop we built fit within the city ordinance for outdoor structures. So I know that there's more added into this new ordinance, and I think it really covers everything that you could possibly ask for with that. Like I said, there was never a smell problem or noise problem. They were humanely kept. Animal Services had been willing to go along with having chickens. The people who worked for Animal Services at the time knew how chickens need to be cared for. I always had a vet that I could go to, so my chickens were vetted just like my cats were, just like my dog was. And we really took good care of them. Urban chicken keeping is just different than having a farm. Cats and dogs were farm animals. Their jobs are different now. Chickens, when you keep them in an urban setting, their jobs is different. They're a pet. They give you eggs. They're not in this big, factory, farm, barn where it stinks and nothing, it doesn't get cleaned out as often. So they can be kept cleanly, and they just have a different role. Plus, they're very quiet, and they're not going to harm anybody. So let's see. The only thing that I would maybe suggest or add to it is if we're concerned about chickens getting loose, their wings can get clipped, which is easy to do. You just get a pair of scissors and cut off part of their feathers, and then they can't fly over your fence by accident, because I've had that happen a couple of times, and we have to get them. But
3 minutes is up.
okay, so basically, I think we can have chickens in Maumelle and keep them the same as we keep our dogs and cats, and fit within the rules of the city ordinance that's being proposed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next public comment card I have is from Mr. Phil Bullington.
Yes, Phil Bullington for Blue Mountain Cove in Maumelle, and I'm here to talk on 877. I'm opposed. I looked at the ordinance, and there was a few bullet points in the ordinance, and I had some thoughts on a couple of them. One is an assumption. The first part of neighboring cities have the ability to have chickens. And I just sort of got to thinking that our neighboring cities, most of them became cities in the 1800s and some earlier. And they didn't have any modern conveniences like supermarkets. So backyard chickens were probably the norm. And as I look, and we can see that North Little Rock has put in some ordinances that forbade roosters, and they made some pretty strict specifications. And I believe that was done to try to get under control the coops, so that they had some degree of control. Now, when Maumelle became a city, it wasn't until the late 1900s. And our city founders found that chickens in Maumelle may not be in the best interests of the city, because they specifically said no farm animals in the city of Maumelle. Now, one of the other points was raising chickens at home can be good for children, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, and I don't know a lot about chickens, I will say that up front here, so I just had to do some reading. And I found out that the chickens can live for about 15 years. And I was really surprised that I didn't know that. But also the literature that I've been reading is after about 18 months, the egg laying starts to decline. And gradually it stops. So I don't know, what do you do with old chickens that don't lay eggs, especially that maybe your kids have helped raise? What do you do with them? Because they still require care. Keeping a limited number, and I believe it was 6 chickens, in a manner that does not adversely impact the surrounding neighborhood. That's a good statement, but unfortunately, the way I look at it is that the burden of proof falls on the neighbor who is unhappy or who is harmed by the situation. And as we've seen from experiences with animal control, barking yard dogs is a very difficult and lengthy process to get a correction. Also, I've seen that keeping chickens, even 6 of them, the experts will say they're a lot of work. You really have to be dedicated. You have to take care of them. They must be cared for daily, fed, watered, in some kind of gravel. The coops must be cleaned regularly. And I just had to ask the question, just how much poop do 6 chickens produce a week? And the answer is from 8.5 to 14 pounds a week per Ohio State University Extension Bulletin number 804. And golly, if you're not committed, if you don't clean up after them, it's going to be a nightmare. I think the founders of the city of Maumelle had reasons for not allowing chickens in the city limits.
Time is up, Mr. Bull.
Okay, and
Wrap it up.
in closing, I don't believe we need our animal shelter taking in abandoned chickens or responding to loose chickens in our parks and neighborhoods. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I have some light reading for everybody here if you'd like to pass that.
Next public comment card we have is from Miss Rena Peterson.
Good evening. I'm tired, so I'm not going to take a whole lot of time here.
Your address, please, Rena.
Rena Peterson at 109 Harmony Loop here in Maumelle. I want to say, first of all, this has not been a new discussion. We've had this back in July of 2006. regarding chickens, and one alderman stated farm animals belong on a farm. I have read that chickens are good for rural towns. That is probably the ideal setting. Maumelle is not rural. I grew up in a town of 4,500. That's rural. But anyway, and then on February 19th, 2008, ordinance number 665 was amended regarding wild animals within city limits, and they changed the definition of wild animal where the word farm animals was deleted and replaced with the word livestock. So now we're trying to change Article 10, or Chapter 10, Article 1, Sections 10-3, keeping of livestock prohibited, to eliminate the word chickens to roosters. So what I'm saying is it seems like gradually we're getting to where chickens are trying to be in our backyard. But they do cluck, the hens. There's a pecking order, and they will keep clucking until they get their pecking order. And even if I don't know a whole lot about chickens, but I do know that they invite mice. So therefore, there's daily sweeping of all the leftovers or spilled food to avoid the rodents. They harbor rats, mice, hawks, raccoons, and snakes, and yes, even coyotes. And yes, we do have coyotes. You also need a high security coop that can defend chickens against predators like the skunks and raccoons. So only galvanized hardware cloth should be used to build a coop, not chicken wire, because a raccoon can rip into the chicken wire easily. I have a concern about the ordinance with the feet from a dwelling. Chapter 10, Article 3 under Animal Control says that dog pens, outdoor dog pens should be located 50 feet from any dwelling. Therefore, I think the coop and enclosure must be a minimum of 50 feet from the rear and side property line. It must be a minimum of 50 feet from any neighbor dwelling. So if we're going to have dogs have their pens in a separate area, I think the chickens should be that way too. That's just my opinion. If you're going to consider this ordinance, the property lot on which the coop will be placed should be a minimum of 1 acre. You can go over on 365 and have all the chickens you want because you'll be in the county. Isn't that correct, Mayor Watson? Is that county up on 365?
Parts of 365 are. Parts of it are North Little Rock.
Okay. All right. So, and also the location of where you're going to have the coop. At this point, you might want to consider the coop be placed in the shade in the summer and in a dry location in the rainy climates because there will be a smell. And even if we can't smell them, the dogs can smell them. So my point is, when is it a nuisance? Is it the dogs that's a nuisance, or is it the chickens? I think there needs to be a lot of homework done with this. So my consideration for this is you guys need to do some more homework. I think this needs to be withdrawn right now. And if you seriously want to have chickens in Maumelle, we need to have a committee or a task force to look into this a little bit more, instead of one individual mentioning chickens for Maumelle and then having an ordinance. I just don't even think we need to vote for that. So I'm in Ward 2. I'm here to tell my alderman I'm totally against this. And
time's up.
Okay. And there is a book, Raising Chickens for Dummies, for $15 on Amazon.com.
Thank you very much, Ms. Peters. Next public comment card I have is from Ms. Beverly Albertson.
I'm Beverly Albertson, and I live at 133 Hibiscus Drive. And Ms. Peterson has spoken about some of my points here, and I agree with everything that she has said. I'm a Nebraska farm girl, and I know all about chickens. Chickens are dirty. Even though they may be urbanized, they're still dirty, and they do make noise. We are not a rural community. We're a city community. And with the parameters that are set forth in this ordinance, if I was to have a neighbor on each side of me, let's say, and 3 behind me, all having 6 chickens, that's 30 chickens. What do you think the noise and the odor is going to be? It's going to be a big nuisance. And it's just the parameters are not right. it would be like a big farmyard. Ordinance 877 says that there's no roosters or male chickens allowed, but yet, like she mentions in Section 12, you took out chickens and you added roosters for 90 days. So if those 5 owners around me all get a rooster for 90 days, there we go. So I think you need to take a good look at that part, that Section 12 of that ordinance. It's not right. As a former real estate agent, I do believe that having chickens in your yard, if your neighbor is trying to sell the house, it could be a hindrance to real estate sales, and mostly because of the fear and the noise. Code enforcement already has a big responsibility in keeping up with our enforcing our codes. I don't think they need another one put on their list. And my question is, when these owners go out of town on vacation, who's going to take care of the chickens? Because if that pen isn't cleaned, the odor will start and will continue. All of you, we have big issues in Maumelle that you are already working on. I don't think you need another issue to be considering or spending a lot of time on, so please consider that. Just because Little Rock and North Little Rock and maybe some of the other communities have an ordinance allowing urban chickens, stop and think about when you were a teenager and your parents, and you came home and you said, I want to do this, and because Johnny or Jane is doing it, your parents said if they disagreed with it, it's not a good idea just because Johnny and Jane are doing it. And so that's the same thing here. Just because the other communities are doing it, we do not need to be doing it. I am surrounded by dogs. I don't want to be surrounded by chickens and have to listen to their clucking at the time. And there is no way you can stop a chicken from clucking. You can muzzle a dog, but I don't think you can muzzle a chicken. I ask you to consider voting against this ordinance. It is not the right thing for Maumelle. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alverson. Next public comment card I have is from Mr. David Osborne.
First of all, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Mayor Watson, for allowing me to come here and speak my piece. Thank you to all the local aldermen of the city of Maumelle for allowing me to come before you today and argue my case.
Name and address for the record, please.
My name is David Osborne. I live at 7 Yellowstone Cove, citizen of Maumelle. Before I got involved with the Chickens for Maumelle movement, I hadn't experienced firsthand how divided we could be as a community on even the most minute, trivial subjects of discussion. While my wife and I were out petitioning the area to rally awareness and support for our cause, I encountered an amazing amount of support, but as is the case with any issue worth discussing, I actually encountered a little resistance as well. As a student of history, I didn't view this opposition as a nuisance, but instead as a natural byproduct of a place with a wide variety of people from all backgrounds who are able to believe whatever they choose by the structure established by the forefathers of this country and the documents that they transcribed. The ideas that allow us to come together right now as a group of individuals and decide how we should govern ourselves are something that we should all hold sacred. As leaders of the community, it's your duty to ensure that the decisions not align not just with your personal beliefs, but also with the entire framework of society laid down by those long before us. However, just the same as we stand here today with those both in favor and opposing change in ordinance, there were conflicting ideas surrounding the drafting of our nation's Constitution. Today, I'd like to place the foundation of my argument on a structure laid down by one of those many minds that molded our national manifesto, and that's Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson's ideals of what constitutes the perfect American citizen might mirror many of your own. Jefferson believed that the perfect citizen was the yeoman farmer. You might ask, what is a yeoman farmer and what makes him an ideal citizen? And I'll tell you. A yeoman farmer was a man or woman who owned their own land and worked it for the sake of prosperity of himself or herself and his or her family. The land he held or on the land he held, he raised his children and his children's children. He toiled over his own piece of soil to produce his own crops, which fed his family. In particular years of great abundance, he would sell the gains for the benefit of his community and for his latter generations. Now, though the old plow and donkey might be all but retired, many of you exist under these same philosophies in your own household. The government doesn't provide you with what you need to live. And when you're doing well, everyone around you does better as a result. What they called yeoman farming before now goes by a new name, and we call it self-sustenance. Owning and raising chickens is but one way that those of us who desire an untethered lifestyle can achieve our dream. However, ordinance in the city prevent us from doing so. All we're asking is for a simple freedom. In asking for this freedom, we've taken great care to consider the rights of our neighbors and those around us who may not desire to raise chickens. Our ordinance, as you've already seen, contains such noise restrictions as a ban on roosters, such aesthetic restrictions, such as that chicken must not be visible from the road. And in order to combat abuse of the change, and with regard to the best interest of the animals, we've dictated space requirements and limitations on the number of animals owned. We've based our ordinance on precedents set by our neighbors, Little Rock, North Little Rock, and Conway. In our research, we found that these ordinances have had few, if any, problems. In conclusion, if you take nothing else away from this plea, I'd like to state that all I'm here to do is have the freedom to choose what ways I will support myself without infringing upon my neighbor's peace on my own property. I ask that you take that into consideration and make the decision that you believe best upholds our constitutional and philosophical freedoms and best benefits the community.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. That's all the public comment cards that I have on this item. Is there any discussion among the aldermen or questions? Okay. If not, this item will be on second reading at the next meeting. Alderman Lewis?
I have two questions. These will be directed at City Attorney Norris. Yeah. Would you speak to Ms. Alberson's point about the addition of roosters in the existing language?
I presume we're talking about Section 12, the amendment there, which currently allows certain farm animals to be held within the city up to 90 days as long as you meet the provisions of Section 10-3C. Currently, it says that chickens may be held for 90 days, and actually it's just one. And because this ordinance is written presuming that it'll pass, so if chickens are authorized, I didn't want another section of the city code saying that chickens can only be held for 90 days. So instead of having chickens, I just put roosters. So roosters, in my interpretation, are currently allowed. A rooster is currently allowed in the city of Maumelle as long as it meets the sections of this code. So this doesn't broaden the animals that are allowed under this section. It keeps it the same or reduces it.
Thank you, Mr. Norris. And the second question is, would a change in the $10 permit fee at a later meeting constitute a significant change that would reset the readings?
I'd prefer that done sooner rather than later. I don't know that that's a material change unless it were just to become so big that it would, if the permit fee was $1,000, I think that materially
that's quite a change.
Changes what we're talking about. If it's kept right there, I think we'll be okay.
Well, I'm not thinking of anything so grandiose.
Yeah.
Just to let the audience know, often when the council makes an amendment to any ordinance, depending upon how big the impact is, if it changes it, it can reset an ordinance back to a first reading. I think we saw that with the golf carts when we talked about that. And so if a change is small, though, it would proceed along the same timeline with the second and third reading. So that was the nature of the question. Hope that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Lewis. Alderman Mosley?
I think I read the ordinance to where this would be under animal control as far as supervision, collecting the fees, enforcing things, and all that.
That's correct.
I don't know if anybody from animal control's here, or if you would be interested in comment, but I would be kind of interested in what type of a workload this might create for animal control.
Well, that's hard to say. I mean, if there's 10 families that have chickens, it's probably not a large workload for them. If it's 1,000 families, then it's going to increase the workload. So it's too subjective to say what it would actually do. I mean, it makes sense that it's under animal control because it is animals. And so whatever department you put it in, it could increase the workload.
Right. The other question is if a person with the chickens, if they decide to sell the eggs, does that also require them to get a home-based business permit or something, do you think?
I'm going to defer to Mr. City Attorney on that.
The idea is that this is for non-commercial purposes. I think I have that in there somewhere.
Okay.
I think you do.
Yeah, we talked about it, so I think it's got to be in there.
We don't need to beat it. It was kind of a question one of the constituents that called me asked. But that'll come out, I'm sure.
But it would be one of those things that could be considered a business because there would be, if cars were driving to their house and, to purchase eggs, so then it very well could be.
Okay.
I think.
That's all I've got. Thank you.
Alderman Vapurzian?
A couple things. I love the democratic process. And who knew that we would have a full house because of chickens? But I have spoken, Alderman Mosley, with Rita Kavanaugh, head of Animal Services, and discussed the ordinance at length with her because no one wants to burden Animal Services with much. And I've thought about that, and there's no way of answering definitively how many people in Maumelle are going to have chickens. My guesstimate, it's going to be a low number, just because of all the things that they've got to do to have chickens. In a city with well over 5,000 dogs, I would be. I'm not going to throw out a number, but I think it would be a lower number, much lower than 5,000. I would be shocked if you're talking a couple of dozen people that had chickens, but I could be very, very wrong. There could be a strong movement sweeping across the city, and I don't know. We could have. I don't tend to be facetious, but that's the way I am. So, but yes, I have spoken with Rita and Animal Services as well, and she has spoken with North Little Rock and others. I mean, and it is the point was well made that these other cities were much older when they made these. This week I called New York, Los Angeles, Houston, Atlanta. All these cities have chicken ordinances. I mean, big cities, and some of them have been. Sherwood, you can have roosters. Conway, there's no limit. There's no limit in Little Rock. They're working to amend ordinances. But I would encourage people, if you don't know much about it, to investigate. And again, if you're for it, you're for it. If you're against it, you're against it. And I think I just love this process. I didn't mean to bewilder everybody, especially city attorney and the mayor, because he just looks at me. He says, if we're talking about chickens, we're not. But it's taken a lot of people's time, and that was not an intention. But the process has been very intriguing for me, and I do apologize for the length of time that it's taken, but I do want to thank Mr. Mayor for the 3-minute time rule. That's wonderful. Thank you, because the Yankees are playing the Tigers right now.
We should have put it on you, I think.
Yes, sir.
3 minutes on you.
Ooh, that was rough.
All right. Thank you, Alderman Vapurzian.
Thank you.
Alderman Kelly?
Thank you, Mayor. I did my own research online and picked up a few articles because I was intrigued by this idea. And I'll be honest with you, I think the detrimental parts of owning a chicken in the urban confines of Maumelle is not such a good idea. I'm afraid it will impact property values because there is fear out there and not everybody's well educated on the chicken movement. I'm concerned because these are pets, and they lay, from what I can understand, what I read, 6 months to about 4 years, and then they live to 15 years. And my concern is we'll have chickens released because people don't want to kill their pet, because that's what they do on the farm. And my concern is we could be like some other cities who have an entire group of people dedicated to controlling the out-of-hand chickens that are running through their cities. Now, that's painting a pretty dire picture, but it does happen. I've also read some articles in some cities that are experimenting with it. Grand Rapids, Michigan is one. And funny enough, as a fireman, I read an article there that they had a chicken coop catch fire because they're trying to keep it warm in the winter, and they've had some number of chicken coop fires. So there's a lot to this that I don't think our ordinance covers. There's a lot of support and logistics involved with raising chickens. And some points were brought up that were very valid about distances, construction of the coops. If we leave this to people's devices, we could end up with anything from a cardboard shack-looking thing to the Taj Mahal. So if this moves forward, we need to proceed very carefully.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Kelly. Alderman Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think my question is probably going to be more directed towards Mr. City Attorney. One of the points that were brought up on the side that where it was against this ordinance was talking in regards to concentration, in certain areas. So if we had a whole street of people that were very, involved in this movement, you could very easily have a concentration of, 6 families that have birds, coops together. And what I want to know is there a way that we can limit that by permit? I know it would take an amendment to this ordinance. That's something that we could.
We had discussed this at some point, and I'd looked into that, and I didn't find an easy to operate, to enforce mechanism for that. If that's something that, if you've seen another city that's done something like that, that's always an option. I have seen some cities that limit the amount of permits issued per year. The whole city would say, for example, we'll issue 20 permits 1 year, and the next year we'll issue 20 more. If you still have yours active, you can do it, but that allowed them. It maybe didn't address the density in a neighborhood, but the density citywide. And if you come across something like that, I'd be happy to.
Well, I've done some looking, and I didn't find anything.
Yeah.
That's why I was hoping that maybe you had, in our conversation. So I'll have to consider that more. We've got 2 more readings, and I'm sure we're going to hear from a lot more constituents, hopefully, and we'll just go from there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Alderman Anderson. I have no more lights on. Is there any more discussion on ordinance number 877? Okay. If not, we'll move on to the next item. Ordinance number 878, amending the Maumelle Land Use Plan. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
Being enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 878, an ordinance amending the Maumelle Land Use Plan and Map and for other purposes.
Okay, we have Mr. Jeff Hathaway, who you heard from earlier, and Mr. Steve Wells are in the audience. And Mr. Hathaway represents Mr. Wells, and Mr. Wells is the property owner of this property. And Mr. Hathaway, if you want to address the council.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I would. Alderman, should I assume that comments about the land use plan change and the rezoning change that are being requested are going to be lumped together, or should I treat these separately?
No, you can speak overall to both projects or both ordinances if you want to. That's
Okay.
fine. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, my name is Jeff Hathaway, and I represent Wells Brothers LLC, a member of which is Steve Wells, who's with me here in the audience, and he's certainly available to answer any questions if that should be desired by the council. You can see on the screen the property that we're seeking a rezoning for. It's a tract of approximately 9 acres. And it has Crystal Hill Road frontage that is bordered by the First Security Bank property on the north and by the entrance to the park on the river, or whatever the appropriate name is for the city facility there on the south. As you probably know, the Maumelle's city zoning staff has recommended to the Planning Commission that they recommend a due pass to the City Council on this rezoning and this land use change, and I believe the Planning Commission's vote was unanimously in favor of it. And there were some very key points that were made in the city staff's analysis of the proposed rezoning. The most relevant one, in my opinion, was that the site is bordered on two sides, on both the north and the east, by other properties that are also zoned planned commercial district, which is the zoning that we're seeking for this property. Also made the point that there is a potential for increased sales tax revenue as well as employment opportunities that would be generated by the eventual sale and development of this property as a commercial tract. And also made the point that by going before you for a planned commercial district zoning as opposed to a different commercial zoning, all of the permitted and conditional uses that are allowed under that classification are the uses that are allowed in the two least obtrusive commercial zoning districts in Maumelle, that being C1 and C2. So we were pleased to get that approval from the Planning Commission. We certainly hope that the City Council views it favorably as well. I really believe that this is a win-win situation in terms of, obviously, the property owner is interested in selling the property. And the property owner believes, and I believe strongly with them, that the most likely way that this property is going to sell is for it to be for commercial / office development, one or the other or both. And I think that if that happens, the city is going to be able to get some new development in their city, and even more so, the city would be able to get some new development at its, what I would call, the southeastern end of the city. And that to me is very important, because if we don't know exactly who would buy or who would develop what on this property, although we know that we're asking, if it happens under this requested zoning, it would have a lot of controls that the city would have over what is built there, and we were happy for that to be the case. But as you know, there's a pretty impressive concentration of commercial development right in the vicinity of Maumelle Boulevard and Crystal Hill Road. The only thing is, virtually none of that is in the city of Maumelle. Not everybody knows that around the metropolitan area, but I know you know that. And this would be an opportunity, in my opinion, to have an extension of that development that would also be in an orderly pattern of land use in conjunction with the other properties around it, but also give the city some quality development in an area that's proven that it can sustain that kind of development, but actually have it be in the city of Maumelle. I'd be glad to answer any questions that the council may have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hathaway. And I don't know that we've gone through a zoning request such as this since some of the new aldermen are on the council, but part of the deal is the land use plan is a plan. It's not the actual law, basically, but the land use plan, the way the ordinance is set up, the land use plan has to be changed first so that then the zoning can follow, basically. And so that's why it looks like we're doing the same thing, going from special use residential, which is what SUR is, to commercial, and then we're going from PRD, which is planned residential, to PCD, which is planned commercial district. So just to try to explain to the council why we're doing a two-step process here, but that's the same thing that the Planning Commission has to do, but in order to make the zoning fit the master or the land use plan, we have to change it also. Are there any questions from Alderman Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You said that on all the connecting sides of this property, it's already zoned commercial.
Well, in general terms, and Mr. Neri or somebody can correct me if I have this wrong, but immediately to the east, which would be across Crystal Hill Road, that's already zoned, same as this is what we're requesting, planned commercial district. To the north, where there's a little more property that isn't, there's some developed and some not developed, that's also planned commercial district. To the south is your facility, the park on the river, and then to the west is residential and is going to stay residential. One of the owners, Mr. Steve Wells, has a residence on that 16-acre tract there. And I think it's also important in conjunction with that he's interested in this being done right, because it's going to be his neighbor for a long time. He's a long-term resident on the adjoining property.
And has he weighed in on this? Discussion?
Yes, he has. He's fully in support of it. He's He's here if you'd like to ask him any questions.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Anderson. Alderman Lewis?
Do we have the right-of-ways for this track yet for the Crystal Hill Road?
We do.
Thank you. That's all I have.
It was already sufficient right-of-way for the project in that area because the plat had come forward recent enough. So,
Capital.
Alderman Mosley?
Yeah, unless I'm mistaken, I view this zoning change favorably as far as traffic goes because it'll be less residential people or potential for residential people to be participating in rush hour. So this wouldn't be really factor into rush hour as I would see it. So
I would agree, and we hope that if this is approved and if it leads to what we think will happen will be more likely sooner development of the property, that it will work in conjunction with the road improvements that are underway there.
that's all I have. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Hathaway? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hathaway.
Thank you.
If there's no other discussions or questions on ordinance number 878, we'll move on to the first reading of ordinance number 879, amending Maumelle zoning map. Mr. Clerk, if you read that by title only.
Being enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 879, an ordinance adopting an amendment to the Maumelle zoning map and for other purposes.
Okay. Basically, it's as we discussed, this is the zoning portion of the property we were just discussing. Are there any questions or comments on that? If not, we'll move on to the next item, which is the first reading of ordinance number 880 regarding court session times. Mr. Clerk, if you read that by title only.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 880, an ordinance amending the city code to authorize the district court judge to set the court session times and for other purposes.
Okay. If you're not aware, the court time has changed in Maumelle. It is now at 1:30. Is that correct, Mr. City Attorney, on Tuesdays?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so basically, the change was made, and we started having session, and then Mr. City Attorney discovered that actually there was a time in the actual ordinance, and so that's why this move is before you. And it says the district court will be in session at 4 p.m., which is still true. They're still in session at 4 p.m. But it's actually what it really needs to say is district court will be at a time set by the district court judge each and every Tuesday. So evidently it was night court years ago, and because it even says every Tuesday night, and I don't consider 4 p.m. night anymore. Now maybe it was, but it seems to work well for the judge and for our city attorney and all the people that have to be there. Alderman Scott?
There's no reason that we need to rush this through, is there? I mean, it's okay to meet at 1:30?
I think we're okay.
Okay.
And for the sake of just time management here, it may fail, but I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we suspend the rules and execute a second and third reading of Ordinance 880.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and have the second and third reading of ordinance number 880. Is there a discussion on that motion? If not, Mr. Clerk, roll call vote.
Alderman Holt?
Yes.
Alderman Vapurzian?
Yes.
Alderman Scott?
Yes.
Alderman Lewis?
Yes.
Alderman Mosley?
No.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Anderson?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes to have the second and third reading. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read it for the second and third time.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 880, an ordinance amending the city code to authorize the district court judge to set the court session times and for other purposes. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 880, an ordinance amending the city code to authorize the district court judge to set the court session times and for other purposes.
Make a motion that we approve Ordinance 880.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 880. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, Mr. Clerk, roll call vote.
Alderman Mosley?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Anderson?
Yes.
Alderman Lewis?
Yes.
Alderman Scott?
Yes.
Alderman Vapurzian?
Yes.
Alderman Holt?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you all very much. Next item is a resolution 2015-13 expressing a willingness to use federal aid recreational funds. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
Resolution number 2015-13, a resolution expressing the willingness of the City of Maumelle to utilize federal aid recreational funds.
This is a project to do some more wetland trails and possibly another just walking path trail that's behind Garden Oaks area and behind to the soccer fields. It would come from Windsor Townhomes to the soccer fields, and then the other one is a wetland trail that's south of Maumelle Middle School. And Mr. Stowe has been working on that project, and there he is. He's sitting on the front row. So if he's got any questions, I'm looking at the back for you, Jack. But do you want to elaborate a little more on that? Or?
Yeah, I'm Jack Stowe, Special Projects Manager, and this is part of the Arkansas Highway Transportation Department. They have two different types of grants this year. Transportation Alternative Program and regional, the other one was the Recreational Trails Program. So we're able to apply for two of them. Doesn't mean we'll get both of them. Doesn't mean we'll get either one of them. But we are able to apply for both of them. One of them is south of the Wetlands Trail. South of the Maumelle Middle School. It's another wetlands trail, another extension to it. I think Joshua's going to get a picture of it here.
Which one do you want?
The middle one, two site plan. Well, of course, that's too small to see, but that's that one is actually the one going from Windsor to Rolling Oaks Park, the soccer fields. It's an area that we've looked at putting a trail in for some years, and this would give a lot of people a way to get to the soccer fields, walking, bicycling, things like that, which meets the requirements set forth in the state's program. The other one is a wetland trail south of the middle school. Eventually that will connect on one end. We'd hope to make a big circle out of it, but that's probably not going to be possible. So it'll go from the west side of the middle school eventually, and then it'll turn into a boardwalk and cross over to the wetland trails that are out by the softball fields. That one is phase 210, I think. I'm sorry. No, phase 211. And that one's, can't see these very well, but I have maps if you would like to, if anybody wants to look at it. In the light blue is the wetland trails we've already built and the wetland viewing stand. And then in the red up on the left side of the paper, that's the one that we're proposing to build. It would also have a pier on it so that the middle school, who have a pretty active program, can go out there and take water samples from the wetland area.
North is to the left on that sheet as you're looking at it, so north is not up the photograph. So,
rotate.
But if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Alderman Scott?
So this money has not been obtained yet?
No. We have to apply for it.
Applying for grants, and would there be matching funds required by the city?
Yes, that's what the resolution's about. It's an 80-20 grant. The state will, or the highway department will pay 80%, but the city does have to pick up the other 20.
Now, can that be done with in-kind?
It can be done with in-kind. It's similar to other trail programs we've done before.
And this is not, this is not appropriating the funds for that either if we had to do the 20% match or anything. So this is simply a willingness to move forward. We could actually turn it down if we were given the grant, if there was a monetary issue or something like that. I would prefer not to do that, but but if we get the grant, you still don't have to go through with it. So, Alderman Lewis,
could we have the maps sent to the council distributed? Okay, I'm terribly visual, and that often will help. And I'd like to get a.
Jack, why don't you pass them around now? But then we can send it to them also.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Absolutely. Are any of these trails in the vicinity within, and by that I mean within a few hundred feet of the existing dead end of Carnahan Drive?
Yes, the trailhead for the wetland trail would be at the end of Carnahan.
Okay.
And that's just for convenience sake. That way the whole trail will be on city property and make it a little easier for us. So we have to prove that we own wherever the trail is. So it's a lot easier than getting permission from people to cross their property.
That is the trail going
to the soccer fields. And this one is the wetland trails.
Okay, did you have any other question, Alderman Lewis?
No, sir, not at this time.
Okay. Alderman Mosley?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what is the total cost estimate for all these trails, and what would our 20% kind of work out to be? Do you have ballpark numbers on these?
Yes, I do. The Wetlands Trail would cost roughly $52,077. Our match would be $10,415, and the match for the state would be $41,661. I don't mean the state; I mean the highway department. The other walk trail, the one going to the soccer fields, total would be $54,250. Our part would be $10,850, and the highway department's part would be $43,400. And I have those figures. What I mail to you will have this breakdown also.
Okay.
There's additional engineering fees on top of that, though.
Yeah, when you're looking at that, you'll see additional the engineering fees at the bottom. The highway department will not pay any of that.
Now, are these trails going to be gravel or asphalt?
The walk trail, the wetland trail will be gravel, that kind of fine gravel that we used before on the wetland trail. The other one will be a regular asphalt path, just like you see all over the city.
So you can build that asphalt path for $54,000, or
that's the estimates that we have from the engineer.
The wetland trail is a lot longer than the other trail.
All righty.
The big cost on the, I guess the bigger cost on the trail going to the soccer field is we have to build a bridge over a culvert, and that's, there'll be a little bit more of a price to that. But it's already been cleared once. We're not going to have to go through and clear a big area. We just have to kind of bush hog it, and we'll be ready to start laying trail.
All right. Thank you.
Alderman Kelly?
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, Alderman Mosley asked the question I was going to ask. I was kind of interested in knowing what the funding really was. But
well, yeah, it's from the highway department, which is eventually federal money.
Thank you.
And they do this program nearly every year. Some years they have to skip it, but it's a program we've been involved with before.
Alderman Lewis?
Current layout of this system, there haven't been any changes. This was laid out some time ago, isn't that correct?
The wetland trail?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So the area which is, that would be southeast of the current dead end for Carnahan, that is a trail pattern there that reflected the previous master street plan where it would go in conjunction with Carnahan. That wouldn't be intercepting where it would have been, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you have a copy of this? I'd like to have one in mind.
Yeah, I'll email to you.
Okay.
Email it to you. It's the same thing you're seeing right there.
I would like to have one this evening, if that's okay, in my non-nicotine stained fingers. Thank you.
And the wetland trail could be continued on to the north too, where another crossing would be also. So, I mean, at a future date. That was a master plan that was done several years ago.
I'd seen it once before.
And what we're doing right now is the middle school they've built a small trail that comes from their school property and heads to the south to intersect the wetlands down there. And they're already doing field trips down there and everything, but they want it to be more of a all-weather type surface is what they're interested in. And so they can only go down and turn around and go back. This will give them the chance to walk along the north side.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution 2015-13.
Second.
It's been motion second that the council approve Resolution 2015-13. Is there any discussion on that motion? Alderman Mosley?
I had one more question. That one trail, the asphalt trail, would run along the railroad tracks there down toward the soccer fields. Is that an area that was flooded? Is that possible that it could be damaged by floodwaters, or do we think we'll have that all corrected? Or?
Well, there's a current pathway along Gables and a current pathway along Windsor, and they were not damaged by the floods that impacted the apartments.
Are they made of cement, though?
One of them is, and one of them's not. One's asphalt, and one's concrete.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Alderman Lewis?
Realizing, of course, that we would only be responsible for 20% of the investment, it sort of tempers it to a point, but I am very hesitant about how this would look as far as the optics go with Garden Oaks in particular. Given the state of the the alleyways that are there, they're in horrible condition. And to see the city of Maumelle putting an investment in that area that is not addressing that issue, I think would be very callous. So we certainly can vote on that again later on. This is not, a finalization or anything, but until those issues of where Carnahan reaches a dead end right now, and in addition the situation in Garden Oaks, this looks very myopic and looks like we're looking in a different direction. So, thank you.
Alderman Vapurzian?
Having that be Alderman Holt in our ward, done a lot of talking to the folks there on Garden Oaks with the conditions that were mentioned by Alderman Lewis about the alleyways, and they're well aware that if it's ever going to be fixed, that it's on their shoulders. Having talked to Steve Napper at the league, and he was the one, you know Steve, and he's the one we go through and we apply for grants. I did talk with him if we could get a grant for that, and he said that does not happen. And so, which is a shame, but we're in a catch-22 here, and unless some of the folks there in our area, about 20 or 30 homes, want to form their own improvement district, it's going to stay the way it is. So I take your point well, Alderman Lewis, but I don't think I wouldn't want to stop one project because one's not where we want it to be. But again, we have that option in the days ahead to view it and to say yay or nay on either one of those. And I don't know if it's just a safety concern that everybody from wouldn't be crossing the boulevard to come to, because the only people that are going to use that are the folks in the apartments. So there again, we have to come up with, because right now it's a trail to nowhere. Right now the trail dead ends and it's a trail to nowhere. We have to say, is the money that we're going to spend, what's the traffic from the kids or the people coming over from the Gables to the park? That would be as much as a concern as anything that I would have concerning that specific trail. So I don't know that anyone else would use it or have need to use it if they didn't live in the Gables, because there's nothing over there, and I doubt, and I don't think there's any more residential planned to be on that side. So that would be my concern. And that's our ward. So, and I'm in favor of everything we can do for our ward, but is the money being well spent for the few kids that come to the park? I don't know. Just wanted to throw that out there. Jack, do you have any opinion on that? Again.
I just do the grants. Y'all make this decision.
Thank you, Alderman Vapurzian. Alderman Mosley?
I'll vote for this, but I certainly see your point. It's a very good point, and we do have, but I'm with John or Alderman Vapurzian on he stated that much better than I'm about to here. But I do think we have problems with things that were set up by developers over the years that perhaps should have been built to spec and deeded to the city. And I think as much as possible we need to keep encouraging going in the right direction on those things. And that is a shame. And if there's a way to do that with grants or anything along the way, it would be great, because I know they've got problems over there. But I will vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Mosley. Alderman Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor. Point well taken, but I can't see penalizing people in that area, not giving them a trail.
Agreed.
When we have the opportunity to pick up 80% of the funds.
Yes, sir.
The other thing is, I think in our Maumelle Forward Plan wasn't one of the big visions to have a trail system that went throughout the entire community. This certainly is in keeping with that goal. So I would caution us to kind of keep these as separate issues. I agree, we really need to look at that, but our hands are pretty much tied at this point. But I certainly wouldn't want to penalize that community or that area of the city because they have an alley problem. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. I want to point out one thing. The area could ultimately serve the industrial park, and when I go meet with industrial plant managers and people that work out in the industrial park, they want a place to walk. We don't have sidewalks in the industrial park because it's not in the code that you have to put sidewalks there. But they do want sidewalks. They want to get fitness during their lunch hour, or they want to go somewhere. And so I think ultimately where this doesn't connect down to where all these are, I mean, that's how we can fund some of these grants. And if you can do it for 1/5 the cost with these grants, then I think that's the thing to do, is we develop the master plan and try to build to that. The wetland trail could even tie to that area ultimately that's in the school area right now, but it also could serve the industrial park if somebody wanted to. They might have to drive a little bit to get to it even, but then they're close by to a place where they can walk in the woods or something during their lunch hour. So I do want to point that out.
I think the money's right on this, too. It sounds low cost.
Okay, if there's no other questions on Resolution 2015-13, it's been motioned that the council approve it. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, all is in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no.
No.
Motion passes. Next item is Resolution number 2015-14, amending the 2015 general fund budget. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
Resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, Pulaski County, Arkansas, Resolution number 2015-14, a resolution to amend the 2015 general fund budget.
I actually like having a finance director that comes up and says, hey, we need to do something, and before the fact instead of after the fact. Now, and what happened is in September of last year, the funding was approved for the Barber Cove Drainage Project. The council passed it, approved $235,000. The issue was it was amending the 2014 general fund budget. The money is being spent in 2015, and so basically we need a resolution. This is exactly the same amount that was approved in 2014. It's just getting the money into the right audit year, I guess would be the right thing to say. And so she brought this to us the other day, and so as you can see, we included the resolution that was passed in September 2nd of 2014. But that's all we're doing. It's not adding any money to the project. We're not asking for any additional funds. It's just moving it into the current year.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution 2015-14.
Seconded.
It's been motioned and second that the council approve resolution number 2015-14, amending the 2015 general fund budget. Is there a discussion on that motion? Alderman Mosley?
Yeah, I'm going to vote for it, but boy, when I saw this, I thought, my gosh, I thought we already took that hit. And I didn't want to bust the budget this year, and that's what we're getting ready to do. But we apparently didn't bust the budget as bad as last
Well,
year.
this came out of last year's budget, and
I know,
so
but I just
moves
I
forward.
just thought, oh my God! I mean, at first I was going to vote no just because it upset me, but
There's going to be a contractor that's going to be really upset with me.
Your doorstep.
There's no good rationale to vote no, so I'm going to vote for it. But it just bothered. I'm sorry.
I understand. If there's no other discussion, all those in favor of resolution number 2015-14, please signify by saying yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Next item is resolution number 2015-15, amending the 2015 general fund budget. That's enough 15s for you.
Resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, Pulaski County, Arkansas, resolution number 2015-15, a resolution to amend the 2015 general fund budget.
Okay, this is one of those other issues that you don't find out till the next tax year when you get a bill for it. In the past, when the city has purchased property, the county has always been willing to immediately the sale of the property that it takes place, then they will exempt that property from the tax rolls. They don't do that anymore. They do it at the start of the next year, basically. So January 1 of this year, we have an exemption on the tax for the land that was purchased at Club Manor and Odom South, the 6 acres that was purchased July of last year. We did receive credit for $4,065 from the previous owner of the property that we got in the transaction. So technically, we received $4,000 in the transfer of the property and everything, but the tax liability for last year is $7,770. And when the clerk got the bill for that amount, he said, well, we only owe up through July the 10th. And they said, no, you owe all of it. We can give you exemption for next year's tax bill, which is this year, but we can't give you one for July through December. So that's what we're asking for now is a mechanism to pay the taxes for the 2014 tax year. Alderman Lewis?
These are property taxes.
These are
correct?
property taxes, yes, real estate taxes.
Maybe I just sleep at the wheel here. Cities don't generally pay.
That's correct.
So it was assessed at the start of the year, and that balance doesn't change regardless of sale?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
And Mr. Clerk might can speak to that. He spoke to the gentleman on the phone about it.
And they have for us in the past. They have changed that for us in the past. When I contacted them this year, they said, no, we don't do that anymore. We got a new attorney who clarified that for us. We can't do that for you. So he said, whatever it is, first of the year is what it is. Matter of fact, gave us a hard time and told us that he was doing us a real big favor by exempting it this year.
Well, I'm confused. They don't charge property taxes to a municipality, so what is he going to exempt for 2015?
What do you mean?
Well, if you don't pay any tax, if you have no tax liability, then what would he be exempt?
We didn't get the bill until April, so he didn't know on January 1st
Nice to see you,
that
Ms.
it was in
Thompson.
the
I didn't know
city's
you're still here.
hands.
Yes, I'm still here. I think what we have to remember is that as we have to do as individuals, we have to assess our property by March 31 of 2015. Well, what happened is because we purchased this property in July, we technically should have assessed it by January 1 of 2015 in order to get that exemption. But we were not aware of that change in how they were doing that procedurally because they did not notify the municipalities that this was happening.
Okay.
So we were not the only ones that got caught in this trap.
Well, all right, I'm going to be a little cagey here.
Yes.
What if we don't pay them?
Well, they normally put liens on properties that what happens is you get a lien on the property if you don't pay your taxes, and then it could be taken back from you,
By whom?
by Pulaski County.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would be done is be auctioned at the county courthouse.
Right.
With the Senior Wellness Center on top of it, potentially.
I agree.
That and a fire station,
Right,
Yeah.
possibly,
right.
or
Yeah.
most likely.
Ask us to move out.
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
I'll yield to Alderman Vapurzen at this time. I'm waiting with bated breath to hear what you have to say.
Alderman Vapurzen.
I just, whose fault was this? Was the burden of proof upon them to let us know of the change, or were we
I
supposed
would like to believe that because we were under the assumption that what we've done in the past had been okay and was correct according to the law. They just recently reviewed the law and decided, no, we don't like it like that. And I think, we're just under, a different climate budget, under budget constraints everywhere. And the county in particular. So they're reviewing everything to make sure that they're getting all the revenue that they believe that they're entitled to.
As a municipality, city attorney, do we have any recourse of action that we can say this was not?
It's something you can ask the city attorney to look into. He might be able to come up with something.
Paul Bunyan.
Yeah.
It Babe the Blue Box.
I feel like we've been bullied.
Sure.
Please.
I felt like
Same
I
way.
think Alderman Lewis feels when I talked to the gentleman the first time, because I've worked with him for
Right.
9 years on
Right.
all of the other property that we've ever acquired, and never had this situation, and really had to check myself so that I didn't jeopardize our 2015 status. I'm telling you, he told us he did something for us that technically he was not supposed to do, because whatever they assess it at on January 1 is what he says it's supposed to be. So I checked myself very quickly so that I wouldn't cost us another $7,000 with a. But the way he explained it to me is that the statute always required to do it this way, that they just weren't doing it this way. So we can certainly have City Attorney Norris look into it, but
Is this one time? This is one time?
Yes. We have confirmation from him that starting exemption begins 2015 and future. So we will not bear this burden in the future.
And we do have 4,600 of the bill already credited to us in the
4,065.
4,065. Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
a little over 4,000 credited to us from the sale. So it's a $3,700 hit.
Okay, Alderman Scott.
I'm not an attorney, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn recently. And I do watch court television. And they always say that ignorance of the law is no excuse. I think we're stuck.
This is the only place we can whine, though.
Yeah.
Alderman Lewis.
Property taxes are not due until October 15th, correct?
That's correct.
That is correct. October 10th, but yes.
Well, we have a full-time city attorney now. I don't know. I think we ought to just kind of let this sit on our chest for a little while. I'll yield to Alderman Anderson's comment, but I may have a motion forthcoming. Not yet.
Alderman Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree that ignorance of the law is not an excuse, but there are interpretations of the law, and that's what keeps lawyers in business. And so I would like to give City Attorney Norris a chance to see if there's some recourse that we can have against this.
Did you stay at a Holiday Inn recently?
No.
Could say 15% of my car.
Alderman Lewis.
Property taxes, I've learned a lot about those over the years, and it's some people do an escrow with their mortgage and they pay it month to month. I'm not one of those people.
Mm-hmm.
I like to wait until the absolute last possible day because I don't want to give them a dollar of that money until they absolutely have to have it.
Right.
And I've often said that if I ever decide just to throw caution to the winds and leave the country, that the last check that I write will be to the IRS and it will bounce. So in the spirit of the fact that we have a very adept city attorney and it's not due until October 15th, I make a motion that we defer Resolution 2015-15 to the first meeting in, let's say, June.
Second.
November.
Yeah, well, that would be too late.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to defer to the first meeting of June, resolution number 2015-15. Did I hear a second?
Yeah.
Okay. A motion and a second. Is there a discussion on that motion? Alderman Mosley?
I assume in the meantime, City Attorney Norris would be kind of checking it out from a legal standpoint. Yeah, the word arbitrary kept coming in my mind listening to all this. It almost sounds like they've been arbitrary in the past and they're trying to be consistent, or I don't know, which sounds wild. So I'm for that.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Kelly?
Thank you, Mayor. Our docket gets pretty full, and I think we're just putting something off that we're inevitably going to pay. I just don't see anything gained by buying another 6 weeks or 5 weeks. That's my opinion. I'll probably vote against your motion. But, we're going to pay the taxes, folks. That's what we do. That's what we use to pay for everything we have in this city. It's no different in the county. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Kelly. Is there any discussion on the motion to defer to the first meeting of June? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
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 Any opposed, say no.
No.
Motion passes. I don't know if I want to go to this one since the last one. Next item is resolution number 2015-16, amending the 2015 general fund budget. Mr. Clerk, if you read that by title only.
Resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, Pulaski County, Arkansas, resolution number 2015-16, a resolution to amend the 2015 Maumelle general fund budget.
Okay, basically, we had somebody else be arbitrary with us. We lost a roof on April the 9th off of the Lake Valencia fishing pier due to the windstorm that came through about 6 o'clock in the evening. And then about the week before that, or possibly 10 days before that, we took a lightning strike at the old fire station and courts building, and it burned out the phone system. And so we were without phones for upwards of 3 or 4 days down there. So this is a request to allow us to construct the or repair the fishing pier, and then to pay for the courts and fire station phone and voicemail system that had to be installed. And what we found out too in this phone system process is they've changed technology, and so phone systems used to always include a voicemail system. They don't do that anymore. So it's a standalone package. So we put a phone system in, and then they're going, well, you're going to have to go with call notes if you want a voicemail. And then that's an ongoing monthly fee that they're going, oh, it's $10 or something like that. No, it's a lot more than that if you're a commercial type business. And but therefore we then had to purchase a voicemail system. And so that's what you're seeing here is a $3,140 repair to the Lake Valencia fishing pier and a $5,860 voicemail and phone system for courts and fire station number 2. Now, the one question we ask is we hope to be out of that building, can we move this? And we can move this to another facility. So if it's still operational when we move it out of there. So the request is to amend the budget to allow these repairs to be made and to pay for the phone system. Not only did we read that?
Yeah.
Oh, we did? Okay. All right. I didn't write that down. Alderman Scott?
Sometimes the reason equipment like that is damaged, because this used to be my life, was because of grounding issues. So I hope that we're verifying that our grounding is adequate.
We will. The other thing is we have a pretty tall antenna that's tied to the radio system that's at that facility. I'm assuming that's probably what it hit and somehow then jumped into the building. But we'll verify that. Yeah.
Do we have a motion?
We do not.
I'll make a motion we approve Resolution 2015-16.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Resolution number 2015-16, amending the 2015 general fund budget. Is there any more discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. All right, that concludes new business. Next item on the agenda is mayor's comments, and the first item that I have there is proposed hillside cut near Orleans Drive, North Little Rock Planning Commission item. Planning Commissioner Todd, Alderman Mosley, myself, and three residents went to the Planning Commission meeting last week, and several of us spoke about the issue, and it was approved 7-0, I believe is the number of people that were there, but they were interested in what we had to say, and feel like between the planning staff and the engineer was not there at the actual meeting, but the city engineer and the planning staff, I think that we at least got it on their radar that we are concerned about that area, and to monitor it during any hillside cut that's there. There was one of the residents is still real concerned about the drainage issue, and the engineer for the property owner said that if they would approve it, then they could work on that drainage, therefore maybe alleviating some of that problem. And so hopefully that's what will occur, is that the engineer for the property owner will address her concerns, and then during the process of this hillside cut. It's a pretty significant cut. It's about 50 foot that will ultimately be cut down there. Would you like to add something, Alderman Mosley?
Just one thing there. One of my concerns was the dump truck traffic that should be coming and going from there over the years, and I asked North Little Rock to please see that it's done safely, to where the dump trucks use stoplights and not try to pull out from Paul Hills and go across traffic, and because they won't be moving very fast, and I'm worried about injuries and accidents with Maumelle residents coming and going. So if anybody sees dump trucks operating in an unsafe manner, please let me know. I'll call the owner and North Little Rock.
And actually, the next day after we had that meeting, I drove out there. They're actually hauling some material out of there currently, where they're doing some shaping on the front portion. And the trucks, you could see by the tracks in the roadway, they were going the way you wanted them to go, which was back down into the traffic light area. And the only time I think they would go the other way is if they're making a right turn on the Maumelle Boulevard and heading into Maumelle proper then, I think. So, but there was more tracks going east toward the North Little Rock side than toward the boulevard down there.
All right, thank you.
Okay, the other item that I have on here is April 9th windstorm recap, and I kind of told you about the damage that we had at city property. We also lost 2 trees at Lake Willistine, and lost some tree limbs, and lost the screening around the skate park. Didn't lose it. It tore the screening ties around the tennis courts and the skate park. But just other than that, we skate pretty easily. We did have, to the best of my knowledge, we had 7 houses that were damaged by trees throughout the city of Maumelle, had trees on them or in them, however you want to describe that. A lot of them were in the Horn Rim Place, Sharondale, Terra Cove, Crown Mountain area, and then we had a couple over in the Pine Forest, Hickory Place Drive area. And then we also had 8 trees in the roadway that night also that fire and citizens actually cleared out. There was a couple of trees that the citizens were taking ownership of and getting the trees out of the roadway that night. The fire department answered, I believe, 13 calls in 75 minutes that night. And then Alderman Mosley had an incident behind his house where a tree fell through an elevated sewer line and broke the sewer line. And so it's where the drainage area behind him where the and I mean, it's a ductile iron pipe, and I'm surprised that it broke, but I understand it's a really big tree that fell through it.
Big tree.
So ductile iron, you would think, would hold that up, but it didn't. But I actually had talked to Larry Pruss, and they were there within an hour or so of the incident occurring, and then they put a temporary bypass in to allow them to give time to get the equipment and the pipes down there, and then they repaired it that night during thunderstorms and everything else, cut up the tree and repaired it that night, I believe. So
That's pretty much. He was actually at my door within 10 minutes, and had a crew out there probably an hour later, and I think they probably had stopped the leakage within a couple of hours. So they're a hard-working bunch of guys. They were out there dodging lightning bolts at one time. So anyway, yeah.
So it could have been a pretty bad situation, but Maumelle Water Management employees jumped on it and took care of the situation.
Yeah, he does have a good crew. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Next item is Planning Commission report, and that will be done at the next meeting after the Planning Commission meetings. Alderman's comments. Alderman Scott.
On 3 different occasions now, I've had near-death experiences with deer in the 2-lane portion between Odom South and Odom North. One time I had to slam on my brakes and everything in my truck went flying forward. I would like to see deer crossing signs so deer are encouraged to cross in a particular area instead of willy-nilly all over the road. No, seriously, just to warn drivers that is a deer crossing area.
They're putting piles of corn out there.
Well, you know that according to the highway department, there has to be so many impacts with the deer at a location before they justify a sign. So,
oh, really?
Yes.
So I got to hit him?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's the rule for the highway department. So, yeah. Have you got a suggestion where you would want those signs?
Well, all 3 of my occasions have been in that 2-lane area. So if it was at the beginning and the end of the 2-lane area, that seems to be the worst.
Okay. All right.
And there is a citizen out there that's feeding those deer in the woods. Yeah, if you look, there's piles of corn on there. So
don't.
In Michigan, they call those bait piles.
Okay. Alderman Vapurzian.
Oh, yes, I just wanted to let the alderman know that this Friday night at Freedom Baptist Church, 3.1 miles from our location, is our bi-monthly free community dinner, and everyone is invited. There's no cost. It goes from 5 to 7 p.m., and it's breakfast for dinner with everything all the way down to chocolate gravy. So if you and the family happen to be out and looking for a place to eat, it is first class served on fine china, and you don't even have to do the dishes. No cost at all.
What was the date?
Friday evening from 5 to 7 p.m.
Alderman Mosley.
Yeah, just in the spirit of transparency, we had a company probably 5 or 6 years ago called Jeffrey Sand that proposed to change the zoning down there on Crystal Hill, kind of right toward the end of our city limits, to put in a sand plant. And I think they're thinking about it again. They've asked to meet with me tomorrow and discuss what their proposal is and that sort of thing. And I just kind of wanted to let that be known, and the residents of our community, a lot of them would remember this. And there's at least some talk about that going on. So that's all I wanted to say, is just announce that. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Kelly.
Yes, I think I'm meeting with them tomorrow as well.
So
Mayor, I want to take time to let the council and you know that I will have to miss the first meeting in May. I've got an unavoidable business conflict, and it's the first one I've had to miss, but this is one of them.
Okay. Thank you very much. Alderman Lewis.
Wanted to inform, most of you may know this, but we do have a special election coming up on May the 12th. It is a millage question that is being floated by the Pulaski County Special School District. The proposed increase is, I think, 5.3 mills, if I'm not mistaken. That would equal $112 a year for every $100,000 of property value. For the average Maumelle resident, once you include personal property taxes, I would say you're probably looking at somewhere around $250 a year on this tax increase. I have been given a facilities plan document in a meeting that I had a week ago today with some of the people in Sherwood, which are part of the Sherwood Education Foundation, which is much like the Maumelle Partnership for Local Education. Met with them to discuss this issue, and also met with Superintendent Dr. Jerry Guest today and Ms. Deb Roush on this subject. That planning document, anyone that wants to see it, I do have a copy of it. Don't plan on making that absolutely public until the district has made it public, but I do have an advance copy. If anyone would like it, they're welcome to contact me. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Lewis. Just look at your FYI. There's several events in there that are coming up. Two of them are this Saturday, and one is the following Friday. So be sure and look at that. If there's no other business to come before this council, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second, third.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Wow. Got out here quick.
Please tell me you didn't say anything
Oh,
about
I'm
city
sorry.
attorney's comments.
I'm sorry.
I didn't have anything to say.
All right.
But I was like, oh gosh, please say I wasn't just staring off into space.